Welcome to the Focused and Fearless podcast, the show designed to explore how you can step into powerful self-leadership and stop settling for less in your life, business, health, and wealth. I'm your host, Heather Angel, and as a certified energy practitioner, coach, and online business consultant with over a decade of experience, you can expect expansive, honest, and enlightening conversations about what it really takes to create the changes in your life and business that right now may just feel completely out of reach. Thank you for choosing to invest in yourself by listening to this episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome to another episode, beautiful one. Today, I am joined with my friend Tracy Marland, who is the owner of Social Butterfly Digital. Tracy and I clicked as soon as we met. She is so down to earth. She's a real, oh my gosh, such a font of knowledge with everything to do with digital marketing, especially the social media side of things. And I've picked her brains on many a time and really found that her advice has been actionable, easy to implement, and it really reduces the overwhelm I've personally felt with social media. And today's conversation came about because we were chatting about authenticity, what it actually means to be authentic on social media and what that actually looks like. So today's episode is all about how you can show up as your true self on social media and really represent your business in the most authentic way and what that actually really means. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. I loved recording it. Be sure to connect with Tracy. All her social links are in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast, gorgeous.
Hello, how are you doing?
Oh, so good. We are going to get straight into this conversation because I know you and I have had this conversation so many times off air, and I was like, we've got to get this onto the show. So let's just get straight into what does it even mean to be authentic on social media?
So we say it a lot and you probably hear it a lot everywhere. And if people aren't saying to be authentic, they're saying, be yourself. And I am quite often then led into the conversation of people saying, no, I don't want to show you my children or my dinner or my gym exercise. And I'm pleased to say it's not about that. It's not about us showing warts and all. It is about, however, being you and talking about what you're really interested in, what sets you on fire, what are your values, what are your beliefs, what are you about? And really thinking about those and bringing those to life through your content. And ultimately, if you start to talk about you a bit more and those things that are really important to you, you're going to start attracting others that feel the same. And that's, I guess, then moving on to the power. But when we talk about what does being you, what does being authentic on social mean? It's really being honest with yourself as well about why you're there. And I think, lots of business owners that will come to me and say, I'm just stuck with social, I don't quite know what I'm doing here. What should I say? Or where should I be? And do I need to do reels? And first of all, there is no, you need to do this and you need to do that. There is no magic wand to wave and it'll be brilliant and work. But, I always say to business owners, well, why are you there? What do you want to get from social media? So I think as well, there's this two-way for me and how I look at it. It is about what you're pushing out and how you're authentic in what you're pushing out, but also it's that honesty with yourself and saying, why am I on social? What do I want to get from it? How much am I prepared to put out there? And because actually some people, don't want to talk about what they believe in and they're purely using their social media channels for PR and showcasing, the good work that they've done, which is absolutely fine. And that's fine. But then it's just, you need to really assess what you're going to get back from that. And so being authentic on social actually helps you to attract other people, to build those communities, create those connections. So if that's what you're looking for, then that's why it's a really important piece. And genuinely, when I speak to business owners, that's what they want. They want to build more engaged followers. They want a big community that ultimately they can sell to. Yeah. And that's what that can help with.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that the word I took away there is like your values. I think that was a big switch for me. Rather than thinking, what do I need to put out there? I'm like, well, actually, what do I believe in? What's the content that I engage with? And why is that? And I'm like, it's because actually they believe the same things I believe. I believe in justice and I believe in female empowerment and all that stuff. I'm like, Well, that's the vibe, isn't it? They say your vibe attracts your tribe. So actually, you're absolutely spot on. If you can get clear on your values, the content creation piece becomes far easier because it's coming from your values rather than like, oh my God, I've got to put some content out today.
What should I say? Yeah, and exactly that. And there's two things. So, authenticity is basically what you say and what you do is what you believe. And that builds trust, doesn't it? But it's that, what's my values? Because that basically they're your content pillars. So you might hear banded around, social media types love to say, get your content pillars clear or get your key messages clear. And everyone's like, what is that?
Yeah. I'm totally down that rabbit hole of like, I've got all these 5 content pillars. I must talk about this today. And I'm like, I have nothing to say about this.
Exactly. And it's just sitting down and reflecting, what is important to me? And is that, like you say, female empowerment? Is it, sustainability? Is it the fact that you just want to, let people learn from your experiences? It could be anything, but those small things that you're passionate about, it's marking those down and thinking about, how then can you talk about those? How then can you bring those to life? But going back to, being authentic and the power it has, ultimately it will build trust. And I think especially in an environment such as social media, where actually, there are those accounts that aren't particularly to be trusted. And there is content out there that, isn't that authentic at all. So being your authentic self, I think really helps to build that trust, because people do get what you're about. And there's going to be some people that totally don't agree with you. And you know what?
But that's great, right? That's the whole point. You don't want everybody, because otherwise, if you're trying to attract everyone, you're so vanilla, no one's going to notice you. You're right. People are not going to go, that's the person I want to work with.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's especially when you work for yourself, if you're a solopreneur, a lot of the time, and even as your business grows, you have an ideal customer, don't you? You have a target customer you'd love to work with. And usually they are aligned with your values and beliefs.
Yeah.
Which is why you want to work with them, because we want to have a connection with someone that we work with. Absolutely. And that's where, how you find them, it's thinking about your values and beliefs. And often if you then reflect on your audience, that's the part that I do with my clients, say, right, with these content pillars, let's think about you. Well, now let's flip it on its head. Let's think about your audience. And 9 times out of 10, they'll be exactly the same things. Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because, something that sort of came to my mind when you were speaking is, for me, a big thing is honesty and transparency. That's, making sure you're in integrity and you're not talking crap, basically, and being like, I'm doing this, and when you're actually not. And, making sure, because I think that is exactly as you said, there's plenty of accounts out there giving it the big I am. And you're like, really? You can hear, quite often with my audience, certainly I work with a lot of very spiritual people, and they're like, it just felt a bit off. I'm like, yes, that's your intuition going, that's bullshit. And people can sense that through the Instagram feed.
And this is the thing, isn't it? Because obviously in face-to-face, we get all those non-verbal messages, and you normally can, like you say, your intuition, your gut, whatever it is like, hang on a minute, I don't get a good vibe here. But you do have that on people's social media accounts, because if you have content going out which is all over the shop, then you are a bit like, there's no consistency here. Hang on a second, I don't trust this, because it keeps changing.
Yeah.
So again, that piece, Yeah,
and I think that's really interesting, because there's I do want to touch on another word that came through is like vulnerability. I think a lot of people get a little bit confused how vulnerable they need to be, because that was a buzzword for a while. You need to be more vulnerable, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what do I need to do? Cry? Like, do I need to cry? Do I need to tell you about all my sad days? So that's a piece I definitely want to talk to you. But also, what's the other thing I was just going to say about that was it, sort of mixing the content, because I know I've said to you before, like during lockdown, I was just like, well, I've just done a little home workout and here's my lunch. It's literally, I have nothing else to share with you. I'm not anywhere exciting. And I think I definitely fell into that pit of like, oh gosh, I've lost all inspiration of what on earth to talk about. So how do people, we'll talk about the vulnerability piece in a second, but how do people actually make sure that, they're using their social media to grow their business in an authentic way? Because I think that's ultimately, when you speak to people, I'm sure your clients are like, yes, I want to do this, I want to inspire, but I've got to make bank. Like, I need to make money. I need
Absolutely. It's a marketing tool, isn't it? That's why we're there as business owners. Otherwise, we just do it through our personal accounts. So when it comes to business, It is, and ultimately it's about networking. They are social or content networking platforms. So you either are making a connection with a person or you're making a connection with a piece of content. So it doesn't become clunky and hard work. It's like you said earlier, once you realize, actually, this is the content I really like I engage in this, I find it easy to comment on this. That should be 60% of your effort. So most of your effort on social media is about engaging with others' content. So when you really know your business values and your business beliefs, you'll know then where to look for content that actually is going to spark a conversation, because that's natural then, isn't it? It's the other day, I follow, there are actually some social media experts, if you like. They have academies and do training, and I follow them because they provide me with news and information and update. And one of them put a post on at the weekend about her Volkswagen camper van. And I was like, oh my God. And I absolutely connected that piece of content. And I was like, we've got our Marv and it's great. You're going to have the best time on holidays. And I have never commented on anything before. And I actually, commented on that post. And it's nothing to do with social media. But that really resonated with me. It was something that I'm interested in. And so much so, it led to us then having a really good conversation, which probably wouldn't have happened before, because other pieces of content that I find them valuable, but there wasn't that emotional connection to make me comment. And that's the thing. So one of my friends, we were talking about social the other day. She's like, oh, I know I need to engage other businesses, but I just feel a bit awkward. And it feels like I don't want to hound people. Do they want to speak to me? And first of all, I'm like, absolutely. If people are on social media, we're there to talk. So don't ever be afraid to DM people. If they might ignore you, fine, but we're there, give it a go, because a lot of them just want that conversation. I said, but also just think about what you're interested in. Like, literally just hide some of the stuff that you don't want to see. Go through your following accounts and go, do I really care about this? Because a lot of people say to me, I keep seeing rubbish in my feed. I'm like, you can turn that off. You can unfollow the account. So make the environment a better place for you to be in. Follow accounts that you're really passionate about, not ones perhaps in your personal life, but we're thinking about this in a business mindset. So think of those accounts that you're interested in, that inspire you, that are great businesses that you enjoy seeing content from. And that will just generally help you then to have those more authentic conversations. And it is about just talking to people. And when you see great content, letting them know it's great as well is a big help. And you'd be surprised, like you said earlier, if you find something you're interested in, and it becomes natural to say that's great, the conversation will start flowing. And really that engagement piece, that is engagement, that's the bigger part of the job really of social media. And that's like human connections, isn't it? When we're in a room, when we're networking.
Absolutely.
It's not, you're not having that conversation, you're sending that DM because you think, oh, I want to do business with them. You're just saying, oh, that sounds really interesting. Let's have a chat. What was that about? I love that post. And you never know where that's going to lead.
And that, I think, is the key piece, and it's sort of a confidence piece, I suppose, for the business owner to know the difference. Because I'm sure everyone listening has had those messages that have come through. They've had a friend request on Facebook, and then bam, here, I want to sell you this thing, or come and join my group. Because I'm like, no. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go straight into a networking event. Hi, my name's Heather. Buy my stuff. I'm like, no,
exactly. I can really help you.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't even know me. The best ones are like, oh, we do coaching, and we thought you might. I'm like, I'm sorry. Did you even see what I do?
Yeah.
Do you even look at my bio?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why then social media gets a bad name. Yeah. Because it's like, this stuff does still happen. So it's kind of like we all need to work together to change it, and it will be a better place. Because all, like you've said, equally on the flip side, you can build some amazing connections.
Oh, 100%. I think for me, I've said to you before, I actually read one of your posts about, you were saying that 60% of your time should be on engagement. I'm like, oh, hands up here. I am. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm really bad at that. Thinking about commenting on people's posts, I definitely don't do that very much. I might see them and like them, but I won't often comment. But I'm in my DMs all the time. And the thing I love about social media, for me, it's definitely been a way of keeping in contact with past clients, with people I've met. That's how, if someone gives me a business card, that's no use. I'm going to lose it. I'm never going to do anything. If I connect with them there and then on Instagram or LinkedIn, I'm like, right, great. Now we're connected and we can have conversations. And, I find that very, very powerful. And I have got clients that way, or, past clients who are like, oh, I've been thinking of you actually. So nice to hear from you. Can we have a session? Or, and that is like gold. Pure gold.
And that's a natural human connection, isn't it? When you're in your DMs, you're not talking about, thought through content. You're having a conversation. And so you are then being your authentic self, because you're just you and you're just talking and you're having a conversation with someone. So it's even then something you do naturally. We don't need to think about it. So just having that part. Quite often when we think about social, we get really caught up in what are we going to say, what are we going to post, do I need to do a reel? We think about the function and the process of it. We often don't think about how we use the platforms themselves, how we engage with them, how we talk to people. And if we spend more time in that, we're just naturally ourselves anyway, because and it's hard work to be someone else all the time.
Well,
it's not going to last.
Exactly. And that's such a great point. And I think that is why I certainly struggled with social for that very reason. I was like, well, I've got to be professional. And I mean, especially LinkedIn, that used to terrify me. I was like, oh my God, it's so professional. They're not, I'm like, I swear, and I do this, and I talk about crystals. They're going to think I'm a lunatic. I was like, I can't go onto LinkedIn. Whereas now, you know me, I'm just like, whatever. I'm just like, I'm going to post what I like. If you don't like it, don't like it. Whereas Instagram, I'm like, oh, well, these are my people. Everything's quite pretty and light and fun over here. Which
naturally as a platform, it does, like, holistic spiritual well-being is huge on Instagram, but you've seen the change on LinkedIn, right? Since lockdown, and then going through that, I think naturally, because like you said, when we were in lockdown, no one had anything to post about. We are like, I've done my J Wicks. I'm now going to go outside.
But I've done some work on my laptop. I've spoken to the 3 clients I've managed to hold on to. I have nothing else to share.
Exactly. So suddenly people then started talking about things they're interested in. And it's made such an impact on the platform, because there has been a shift, and people's now posts are, I would say, more authentic. I think the platform itself feels a more comfortable place to be. There's more conversational posts out there. You then get the cynicisms of people saying, do I have to see their, kids' sports day and their dinners? If you don't like it, you don't have to. But I think actually that, it's done well for the platform, because it definitely has become more of a, authentic place to be. I think 100%. So it's interesting that we were kind of forced into that because of what was going on. But it has hung around, and let's hope, it stays more that way.
Yeah, I think so. Just humans being humans. Like, just remember, I've always had an issue with the whole business to business customer, or business to customer, or whatever the phrase was. And I was like, human to human. Like, it could be a huge corporation, but you're going to speak to a person or a board of people. It's like, it's still people.
Absolutely. And that's all then that big branding piece, isn't it? It's when you're in business, businesses spend a lot of investment on thinking about their brand. How do they look? How do they sound? What do they stand for? What are they about? And I think there has been a shift in the last few years as consumers ourselves, that we now buy more consciously. There's so much choice out there. So what do we buy with? We buy with our gut, don't we? We buy with our emotion, we buy with our heart. And how are you influenced? You're influenced then by what the brand's telling you. Yeah. And there's a stat I shared, and it was something like over 50% of consumers, will increase their spend. Consumers would be cool. Will increase their spend. Yeah, exactly. That is. I'm going to use that. Increase their spend with a brand if they feel connected to it. And also 76% will recommend them to a friend.
Yeah. And isn't that the key? Like the recommendations, like connect with people and they will remember you, that emotional. And I think that is definitely something with the whole authenticity thing. I know that there will be people that have already listened to this far and going, but I'm still not like authenticity. Yeah. Maybe it's the word. It's like, it's that emotional connection you feel with a business that kind of makes you go, oh, I like them. And it is down to branding. It can be down to as simple as, how beautiful their website is or how their social media is. And all that stuff. But it's often so much deeper than that about, oh, this is, and again, going back to your very first point, is that you can feel their values through their brand. And you're like, that's a bit of me. That's a brand I want to invest with.
Yeah. You feel connected to it, don't you? Yeah. There's something that resonates there. And like you say, again, a lot of that is to do with the people. So quite often we will go and buy from someone. If we have a bad experience with a person on the other end of the phone, we may never buy from them again.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's much more than just what they look like, what they sell. It is that human to human piece. But bringing it back, to smaller businesses then, of course, we are our brand. So ultimately, if we, and there was a good example, I think it was Simon Sinek, I was listening to a TED talk, and he was talking about, if you're a financial advisor, for example, and you say to people, I care about you, I am doing this job because I want you to have the best possible future. But then if all you're concerned about is giving them just financial advice and going, right, you should do this, it makes more money, fine, you need to do it today because it needs to be signed off today. Whereas if you're then talking to them and sharing information with them about, I don't know, screen time for their kids or healthy recipes, or have you thought about this offer that's going on? The messages you're giving them, it signals I care about you because I'm giving you more than just that financial information. And I think about that with social media. I think, if I'm out there saying, I want you to feel more comfortable, I want you to lose the overwhelm on social, see the benefits of how that can help your business. A lot of the content I put out there are lots of tips and advice. Yes, people might do it for themselves. Yes, I probably have, I know for a fact I haven't got over 1,000 people that are clients. So I know there are more that follow me and use my information and work with me. But that's because genuinely I do care and I want people to see that social is a good place to be. So then I'm going to provide that content. And I don't think, I'm giving too much away. So again, it's about, it's when, authenticity kind of like is this big umbrella. When we think about what we're trying to share, it's think about what are you saying about your business, and actually what you're putting out there, is that bringing to life what you're saying? Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting what you said about, sort of sharing too much or giving too much away. That's been a debate that I've seen. I mean, I've been in this industry for 7 years now, and I've seen this debate so many times, and there's people that were like, give away your gold, that's what you do. And then there's others like, don't give away too much, only tell them, the what, never tell them the how. And, that conversation can confuse people as well. And I think that can hinder the authenticity of their post, because they're second guessing, am I giving away too much? But I am certainly in the camp of, you can give and give and give, because on social media, you're not going to be able to fix everything for them, or you're not going to, for you can go like, I can give you all the tips, but ultimately they're never going to be able to do exactly what you do because you're the professional in that field. Same as I can talk about a million one things and I can put inspiring posts out, but ultimately you're never going to get the shifts that you would get if you work with me. And that's okay. But it's that giving that, like, I'll give you as much as I can to empower you to that point. And what's amazing is, with you, I think, some of the stuff you share, I'm just like, oh my God, that's gold. I will absolutely give that a go. Still yet to do a reel, but I'll get there. I'm just like, yes, give that a go. That's amazing. And so from that content, you are top of mind. So you are then, I'm like, oh, social media, Tracy. Or if someone goes, oh, who do I speak to? Tracy. Yeah. So I think people need to remember that actually, yes, if you are one of these people who loves to give, then give. Yeah, because in my opinion, it can't do you any wrong.
And that's the thing, isn't it? And you think about us, and how we work. Like you say, we're on the same page, and I think naturally, probably as people, we're very similar. Heart on sleeve, you will give. Well, naturally, then your social feeds probably will be full of more tips and advice. Yeah, someone who maybe holds their cards close to their chest might not be like that, and that's fine, because then you're just being yourself.
Yeah.
It's that big thing on social as well about this whole authentic piece, is to say it's not something you need to be, it's something you already are.
Oh, yes. Oh, I've got to put that in the show notes. That's perfect. Yes. That is it, isn't it?
Think about, when people, and I had a really long conversation with an awesome lady who, is local in business. And I made the mistake of saying quite often in my content, be visible. You do need to be vulnerable. This comes from this vulnerable post, be more vulnerable. And she literally sort of stopped me. We were in a workshop and she went, and she did say, hang on a minute. What do you mean be more vulnerable? And she is definitely someone who is not going to cry her eyes out on camera. And she was like, what do you want? What more do you want from me? And I was like, oh, and I had that awful moment. I was like, hang on, like, I'm obviously not getting this. This isn't coming across right. And that's when then I said, right, okay, actually, I don't mean vulnerable. I do mean authentic. And she's like, well, what does that mean? What do you want me to do? And we were chatting for a bit about, things that are important to her. And I was like, that's it. Just talk about that. Like, I can't tell you what to be. All I can do is ask what's important to you, what you care about, what's important to your business, what do you want your business to look like, who are you trying to talk to, and that becomes the stuff that you do. And try and ignore the other stuff that's around you. And I think that
vulnerability, I think the word vulnerability, I can't remember, I don't know when I started seeing, because there's buzzwords, aren't they? They do the rounds. Authenticity is absolutely one of them. And vulnerability was one. And I think there seemed to be a just certainly from the stuff I was seeing of just people crying on camera or basically bearing their soul, which I'm actually like, I'm a Gemini and a rising Sagittarius. I'm all for like bearing. I'm like, I'll tell you anything if you want to know it. But I do think there is a certain point of like, I don't need to know that you just had an argument with your husband unless it's actually even remotely relevant to what you do or your message. So where does that line? I mean, my feeling on it is it's a very personal choice, and everyone shares things that for me, I share a fair amount of personal stuff because quite often I'm like, oh, that was a juicy lesson. I could maybe save someone else going through that or give them a heads up that this might happen if they do this. But where, for people that are maybe struggling or maybe at that point of like not really knowing how to show up on social media, where's that line of vulnerability to be drawn?
Again, it sits with the individual slightly because I think, when we're on social media, you can have a business page, which can have very different content onto your personal page. So there might be some relationships with clients that become friends, perhaps, and they sit on your personal page. So they get to see that in time. But there does need to be some of you on your business page. Like I said before, you are your brand. People do want to see you. Physically, they want to hear your words as well, so they want to see your sort of opinions. So I think maybe that's the piece that I always say, make it relevant to business for step one. And that can be done by actually, asking yourself when you put an idea together, like, do my clients actually give a shit about this post? Do they need to know that or potentially not do that? And it's that thing of, would I talk about this on a meeting with a client? But I see some business owners that actually bare their souls, and that is needed because, like you said, that's part of what they do and it works, and the people that follow them absolutely love it. So I think it's about owning, where do you feel comfortable and is it going to get you towards your goal? Because if you do need to give more of you, or people have asked to see more of you, or when you go and see a client, for example, or when you're meeting someone in real life, if you naturally give lots of you then and you talk about recipes and food and what you've done at the weekend, well, actually that's you as a natural person. So on social then, do that. But if you don't want to do it in certain places, don't stick it on your grid. Do that in stories. They're only there 24 hours, they disappear. Do that in DMs, then no one sees it on your grid at all. So it's about thinking, where do you feel safe in showing you more, I guess, and what do you want, what do you want to share? I don't show pictures of my children on my social feed. I love my kids. They're a huge part of my job. And like you say, they always come first. But I just choose not to because of, I don't particularly want people seeing them. I do that on my personal feed, but I will talk about being a mum. I'll talk about things that they've done that have taught me a lesson. I talked quite a lot recently about my eldest's experience on TikTok. So it's about where you're comfortable. It's about thinking about, when you see other content, what do you connect with? What level of personal do you connect with? And then if you think, actually, I don't want to share any of that, it's like, right, okay, then, well, how can we show more of you in your content that isn't about talking about your kids, your dinner, or your pets, for example? So absolutely. Is that then, this is a great article. I love this article because I agree with X, Y, and Z. So it's keeping it more, about the subject matter rather than you as an individual, but still showing your values, your beliefs, and your opinions. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that the key thing there that you said, I think, is how is it relating to business? Because there are people that will bare their soul. I've definitely done it before, but again, it's having that moment to check in of like, why am I posting this? If you're posting it because you're like, oh, I want more likes, or, I think that, from a internal looking at yourself and your worth and all that kind of stuff, like be careful, like be mindful of why you're posting. But if you're sharing something about, like, for food is a perfect example. It's so funny we mention recipes and things so much because we do see it a lot, but I'm very, very passionate about taking really good care of your health. But as I said, during lockdown, I was like, well, that's all I'm posting. And it got to a point I was like, I'm not a nutritionist. This is not what I do. No one's going to hire me because I'm like, that girl ate a nice salad yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is not. So I will post about food in relation to, if you're looking after your energy, if you've got a busy week, be mindful of this. And it links into my beliefs around business. So I think what you said there is really, really important, is having maybe almost that check of, what's the value for my audience from posting this?
Yeah. Are they going to care? And that's why ultimately, you need to plan your social media content. And that's where the gold comes in. It's having that strategy. It's having that goal. It's thinking about, why am I here? What do I want to get from it? Okay. What do I want to talk about? What do my followers want to hear? What do they care about? Planning out the content and then thinking about, well, how can I bring these messages to life? And then thinking, and always asking yourself before you press the post button, does it have a call to action in? Make sense and all that. But actually, what do I want people to do when they see this? Because a lot of the time, if you go, I don't actually really know, well, then it's probably not worth the post. But it definitely is about thinking about making, the content you put out there, you kind of need to do the forework, and then everything kind of works in line anyway. But definitely that sort of vulnerable piece, there is no right or wrong, because it comes down to, again, who you are. But ultimately for business, I think it's, what fits in then with your business values and beliefs as well.
And it's interesting. So when you just said about, having a strategy and planning, my brain, I have a certain way of doing my content because I am absolutely on fire for 2 weeks, loads of ideas. And the next 2 weeks, I'm like, well, I can think of nothing. So I have a process that I follow, which I've shared on the podcast before. But for those that are listening who went, hang on a minute, how am I supposed to be authentic if I'm scheduling and process? It's curated. So what do you do for your clients, and how do you advise them if they're sort of like, well, I can't be authentic, if I have an idea, I might not have that in 3 weeks' time. I can't plan it. It might not come. And interestingly, there's clients that I write for. Yeah. So again, it's like, well, how can I be authentic if you're writing for me, or if someone else is writing my content? How does that work?
Yeah.
So
for me, it is about, the grid that you see and the post that you see. It's about, they need to have that consistency. They need to show, your values and your beliefs, and they generally don't change. So those key content pillars, I usually say, spend some time once in a month. So for you, brilliant, because you do that fortnightly or once a month, just sit down and almost have a bit of a brain dump around those content pillars. So, if you talk about, empowering women, well, what's gone on this month? Or what do I care about? Or what's coming up? Or what do I want to talk about? Because you will then have a huge list of ideas of things that you can always fall back to, and those posts at that moment in time, then just write them, because they will be authentic. You care about them, they're important to you. It's then doing pretty pictures or recording your video, or how you're going to bring that message to life, and lay those, put those things in, because on average social media posts, you need 2 to 3 a week, and that is the norm. So we're not talking about every day here. Now, if things happen in the world and we need to change that schedule, you can. If something's gone with you don't want to put that out, you can change. It's not set in stone. But then in and around that, then that's where stories are brilliant, because stories are the more reactive messaging. It's that little snapshot into what's happening that day, how you feel that day, the lesson you've learned that day, what you've seen, who you've met. So that's where really you can then be more reactive to how you're feeling in real time. Some clients do love to do they might do them on a Monday for the rest of the week, or they actually might do them live. But again, it's having that time at some point in the month to sit down and think about my goal, my values and beliefs, and some key messaging, and have that somewhere so you can refer back to it just to make sure you are keeping that consistency.
I think it takes the pressure off as well, doesn't it? Because I like what you said, I'm sure that was a relief when people heard you say, 2-3 times a week. They're like, oh, thank Christ, it's not 4 times a day. I can do 3 times a week. Yeah. And I think if you, certainly for me, with my podcast, that's nice and easy. That's a post a week done every week. Yeah. Right, well, boom, that's Monday.
Yeah.
And then, it might be something else. And I'm lucky enough to have an assistant that will post other stuff. But I am absolutely with you. And from my experience, stories on Instagram, that's the gold for me, because that's where I get the most. That's where I end up in the DMs, because people are like, oh my God, yes to this, or whatever it is. And that's the place I would share something a bit more. You saw them over the weekend. I'm like, I'm at the Ivy. I'm at this place. And I'm like, this is lush. So it gives a little snippet of like, this is what I do on my time off. Like, this is a little bit of me. Yeah. It's not business related, but it kind of gives you a sense of, when I say go and chill out and switch off, I mean it.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're about, people can start to think they connect with that, or there might be something that happens that you have a common interest in, and that commonality then builds that relationship, doesn't it? Yeah. And it's, stories are huge on Facebook and Instagram. You've got, across between both platforms, 800 million people a day looking at stories. It's ridiculous. LinkedIn did have stories. They've gone off again. I do think at some point they come back. Some accounts in the States still have them. But exactly that. Your stories are shown to just your followers, whereas your grid posts are, anyone can see, essentially. Yeah. So if you do feel a bit more nervous about showing you, stories is a great place to be as well, because they're up for 24 hours and it is just your followers that see them. And we can, that's another huge point, is we can create our community. It's our community to build. So if someone tries to join our community and we think, I'm not sure you're in the right place, I'm not sure where you're here, we can remove followers as well.
100. So we can about protect 10 a week. Ourselves. I'm like, off you pop.
Exactly. We can protect ourselves. So also, I think when people think about posting, especially with the vulnerability or the confidence angle, they think, oh my God, all these people are going to see me, and strangers are seeing me, and I don't know who's going to see me. And it's like, you do know who's going to see you. Like, we can protect ourselves when we go live, when we do a video, we can just choose an audience we want to show that video to. So there are things in place as well to help protect ourselves if that is a particular, confidence or being seen as a scary thought to some. And
I'd like to touch on that actually, as we sort of come to rounding up the episode, is the being seen, the visibility, because I know obviously from a coaching point of view, for me, if someone's like, don't like being on camera, I'm like, okay, this isn't about camera. We need to talk about a whole other load of stuff about, the fear of visibility and stuff. But from someone listening to this going, I just want to get cracking on my social media, I know I need to be, again, another buzzword, visible. Does it need to be their face? Does it need to be them on video? I know you're not someone to be like, you must do this. This is the only way. But when people are listening, like, oh my God, she's still saying I need to be visible. Holy cow, I've got to do my hair and makeup every day now. Blah, 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 blah. Where's your stance on what actually you mean by being visible?
So again, people will say to me, God, you're all, you look so comfortable. You're always on the camera and you're fine with it. And like that's taken time to get to that, but I know the power and I see the results of when I do a video and I'm talking, or if I'm in stories, and like you say, I get more engagement. So I do it because I know it works and it connects and people talk to me about it. And I was at a networking event on Friday, I think, when was it Thursday? I can't remember now, the growth in Swindon. And I walked up to a stand and I said, oh, hello. And she said, oh, hi. She said, I know who you are. She said, and you do look like your photo and your videos. And I was like, brilliant. I was like, that is what I want. So yes, showing your face and your voice, that is the gold. That is the aspiration to where to be, because like we've said, for connection as humans, we like seeing verbal and non-verbal. So we like all this, and we like the movement, and we like the voice. And so we like that. So that is the goal. However, there is a process and a journey to go on. And I usually say to people at the very start, even just being visible in your opinions is a good place to be. You know, even being visible and talking about what you did at the weekend or what's gone on in your life is a good place to be. You know, and then it's the things like, you don't have to be in the photo yourself, but you might have, like you say, pictures of you out, or a picture of beautiful Swindon. I live in Swindon. Picture of my desk. This is my workspace. So it doesn't have to be you bear everything. There's ways that we can show what we're about and what we believe in, and we can be more visible by, you know, not just talking to camera. And again, I think when it comes down to, well, content, the different types of content, there is that balance to strike. So all of our content, you know, we have different types. We have our sell content. So ultimately, which again, people can feel icky about, but our social media feeds do need to have content that shows what we do and how people can work with us. So we do need to sell to our audiences at times. We then have that educational content, and then we do need a bit of entertaining content in there as well to keep, you know, and that doesn't mean you have to tell jokes, but it might be more lighter entertainment value pieces about things that might not be as relevant, you know, back to what you do, and things like testimonials. So it's, I guess for me, it's having the content that is a bit more personality. That's the stuff that I like. And that's the stuff that when I sit down with my clients every month and I go, look at your engagement, and their testimonials will have, you know, an okay level. And then when they've gone on and had a picture and talked about what they've done, you know, at the weekend, or when they talk about an experience they've had, or when they reveal a product and they're there, or, you know, talk about an award they've won, like their engagement rockets.
Yeah.
And absolutely. That is why we're doing it, because it's not just about the connection with your audience, that we know that's a sign, like they love seeing that stuff, so do more of that stuff, but also the algorithms that sit behind all of these social media apps that choose where our content goes. You get like a gold star. They're like, oh, that account has good engagement, let's show that content to more people, because that means, you know, their audience is still on our platforms, and ultimately we sell advertising. So it's twofold.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting, because I really found that I was looking at the content, and this is sort of back when I would spend ages on a post, making sure it sounded right, putting the emojis in the right place, doing all the things, and I'd post it and like crickets, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I just spent an hour on that. And then I'd do one, you know, just a picture of me and saying about, I think it was back when, you know, I first sort of was getting divorced, and I was like, oh, this happened. Boom, there's like 50 comments, and I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's a lesson for me to that. I'm like, people love it. People like to know, especially because, like I said, if you build up that, you know, I've been doing this for a while now. So the people that I have following me, I do exactly like you say. I get rid of the weirdos and the trash. I'm like, you don't need to be here. Yeah. The people that follow me, I can hand on heart say, I pretty much know all of them in terms of, I know their business or I know something about them. And so they see that and they're like, oh, and they engage. And that is what it's like. It's incredible. People you might not have worked with for a couple of years, but you still know who they are. Boom, they're there on your feed, and they're just like, oh, you are still here. And you are, and it's amazing. I think you find, you're like, oh, you've been watching for a while, and I didn't even know.
Exactly, the stealth ones. But it's like going back to the camper van thing, isn't it? It's we know how to respond to that, you know, at heart. You know, we're humans. There's humans behind these social media accounts. And we know we might have had a similar experience, or we, you know, like you say, we've worked with you, we care about you, to then comment on things. So it's why we need a mixture of both. We do still need to sell our products at the end of the day, or sell our services, or show a testimonial. But yeah, the post when you are talking more about life, talking more about you, more about what's going on, more about your values, your beliefs, those are the ones that will get the more engagement.
Oh, so good. Is there, and we could talk about this for ages, is there anything else that you would love to share that would round up this episode? Anything else you would love the people to know? I think
the thing for me is the takeaway that there is no rule book. There is no right or wrong, which I appreciate can be really frustrating for some people. But I think go with your gut. Like, if you do anything after listening to this, think about the reasons why for business you're on social media, and just think about what you know, at your core, at your business center, what are those values and beliefs? What do you stand for? And just, think about those and give it a go.
I think that's really, really useful because that's tangible. I think the thing is with authenticity, it's so intangible. Like, well, what does that feel like? What does it look like? And I know, I've said to you before, like now, I mean, I really don't care whether people like my content or not. And but I'm at that point. I wasn't 7 years ago when I first started. It was a painful process of what do I share? How do I share it? And I did the memberships and I signed up with these gurus who were like, you've got to do this and you've got to formulate it like this. And here's some captions. And I'm like, oh my Christ. I never sounded like me because I was trying to put my words into somebody else's flow. So I think your advice of actually getting really clear and just taking a really big step back to what's my business about? What are the core values? Because as you said, especially for solo entrepreneurs, that's us. Like our values are our business values. It's how we show up. So actually, I think that's a really nice, tangible thing to do. And then the confidence and the self-belief and the results as well, the evidence of how it does work. When I actually speak from the heart rather than here's a beautifully curated post and here's a beautifully curated photo and everything's perfect. Takes the pressure off.
It does. And I think, absolutely that. And knowing why you're there, knowing that actually, I'm just slowly. And, people can get really downhearted that they put together a post and they get 1 or 2 likes. And I'm like, okay, but you have, less than 100,000 followers usually. And also, if you walked into a room today and after that networking event, you had 1 or 2 people that came up and said, oh, it's great to meet you. I really connected with what you said then. You'd walk away and you'd go, oh, brilliant. Yeah. So again, it's like, just take stock of what you're doing and because there will be some really good results there. Yeah. And take note of that.
Yeah. And I just remember the other thing I just wanted to reassure people about, and that I loved what you said when you went to the Business Expo last week, that people are like, oh, you're you. Yeah. That's the thing. I used to be like, oh my God, if I'm going on camera, the hair, the makeup, I never look like that normally. Yeah. I got to the point where I was like, this is ridiculous. If I meet someone who's watched my socials, I'd be like, oh, Jesus, what happened to you?
Exactly.
You don't look like you do on camera.
No,
do you know what? I'm just going to show up like this.
Exactly. We have to, because then when if you meet someone who doesn't look like, it's like a dating app, isn't it? You get someone's profile picture, you meet them in real life and you're like, what the?
I know. And catfishing my audience. I'm like, yes, I know this all the time. No, I really, really don't.
It's just not going to help with the trust, is it? At all, really.
Not at all.
So be you, beautiful as you are. Just be who you are.
Yeah, and I think it really does go back down to that. And I think for anyone else listening that's like, okay, great, I've got the tangibles, I can do that, but still feels like they want to throw up at the very idea. Yeah. I hear you. I think, Tracy and I have both been there. It's very, very scary at the beginning. It's perfectly natural. It's not normal. Like social media is not something humans have had for a long time. And it's not normal to be like, oh, I'm just going to be out there. And especially for women, men as well, but especially for women, we're not used to being that visible because it's not been safe to be that visible. So if you are kind of still feeling like, oh my God, I think I'm going to throw up at this, just start where you're at and actually, maybe explore, okay, well, where's that lack of confidence coming from? What is the fear underneath being visible? Because it's not going on camera. Being on camera is not going to kill you. It's not going to do anything. What's the fear underneath the fear of maybe the judgment, of the people laughing at you? Oh my God, is my mum going to see this? That used to be mine. Oh my God, Jesus, I've just sworn my mum's going to hate this.
Awesome. I know quite often a lot of people say to me, it is the family and friends seeing them, because then they'd be like, who does she think she is? And it is always females as well that say this. Who does she think she is? And what was she talking about? I 100% agree. It's always deeper set than. But also I then say, while you're doing that work as well, open an account and just start having conversations and following content you like. Because naturally, if you can start to have conversations with people about things you like and you're talking to them, usually then when they start to follow you back, you feel more comfortable with it as well. So do the engagement piece before you start putting yourself out there. Yeah,
that's a really good point. And actually, I think, again, I've got to that point where I'm like, aunties and uncles see this and they're like, what on earth is she talking about? You don't have to follow me anymore. But that's my personal Facebook. And I'm like, I don't care. But like you said, you can curate your audience. I don't think I've got any family following my brother on Instagram and that's it. But my brother's just like, that's her. Just doing her thing. But I don't have, any other family on that platform. So that is I think Instagram for me is certainly a safe space where I'm like, you're going to get 100% of me. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But I'm not, I don't have that concern of, oh God, my dad's going to see that.
Yeah.
Because that is awkward sometimes, depending on what you're talking about. So I think, you know, sometimes I'm not saying just use one platform, because I think there's value in most of them, but there will probably be, as you get into this, a platform that you naturally lean more towards and feel more comfortable with. And it's certainly Instagram for me, but I know other people who love LinkedIn and hate Instagram.
Yeah.
So, you know, I
exactly. And once you feel comfortable, and then it becomes easier then, doesn't it? Because you're happier to be there.
Yeah.
Don't force yourself at the beginning. Just, start small, go where you're comfortable, and hopefully then it becomes a better place to be, and we can all make it a better place to be.
Absolutely. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Tracy, it's been phenomenal having you here. I really, really hope we've kind of given some reassurance and some clarity about this buzzword of authenticity floating around, and people can now go, oh, I can do that. It's just being human.
Yeah, exactly. It's being you. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, any resources and links mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would be so grateful if you would kindly share, subscribe, and leave a positive review so that the podcast can help and reach as many people as possible. Thank you again for listening. Have a gorgeous day, and I'll see you in the next episode.